So we went from having millions of dollars to wondering where Friday's groceries were coming from. It was humbling. The Lord was doing a work on me. And he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to keep doing it."
Welcome to another episode of Inspire Eunoia, where today our job is to love, lead, serve, and inspire. Today I have a special guest at Kobel. He is the president of DeBartolo Development. He has developed over $4.6 billion. He's a father of two, husband of Becky, and most important that I love about his story, he's a cancer survivor. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Elliot. Always great to be with you.
So Ed, I love your story. It intrigues me because you're always facing, how we would say obstacles, and then you end up overcoming it. I just want to get a quick background when you started, when you was young, how you started in real estate with your landlord and your mom, and just say the story from then.
Sure. So, my mom had an affair. Actually, a guy sought her out and had an affair with her. He had a family. And this went on for several years. And then I came along. And after I was about 6 years old, he kind of disappeared from our life. And after he had promised to sort of rescue, get a divorce and take my mom and I under his wing, so to speak. So when he left, it broke my mother's heart, and she turned to alcohol first and then to drugs. And so as a little guy, some of my earliest memories of real estate, 6, 7 years old, the landlord would come to the house to collect the rent. And, as a little kid, you have a defense mechanism. So, I didn't even understand everything that was going on. So I would just tell people my mom was sick. But I believe that the landlord was probably a Christian. He's a very gentle guy, and he took me under his wings, and I would do little jobs and he'd pay me so I could pay him. Right. It was kind of silly, but it was just grace and mercy in action. And, but one of the things that he taught me was he would buy these old Victorian homes and the hood in Pittsburgh, and he would break them up into 1 and 2 room apartments. And we lived in one of those. And, but he would show me, he'd pay, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a building. And then, he'd get, $50 rent from us and $70 from this person and 80 here, and show me the math. And then show me, at the end of the month, there's this much cash flow left. So as a little boy, 6, 7 years old, I was learning math of real estate, right? And just how it all works. And so that was sort of embedded in me from a very early age.
How long does this process go on with the guy?
That actually went on for several years until really from 6 until 12. We moved we moved out of that apartment when I was about 12 years old.
Got you. And then
long time.
So who was Ed? Who was Ed in high school?
Who was high school? High school? Yeah.
High school, middle school. How was it growing up?
Yeah. I had a single mom, and, at the time, having a divorced parent was really unusual,
Yeah.
So I was always a little bit, I felt as an outcast, but I wasn't. I was with all the cool kids, and I wasn't necessarily the cool kid, but, I was athletic enough to be on sports teams. You had, academic, and I wasn't a scholar or anything, but I was academic enough to hold my own, and just sort of, I moved through all the different cliques in middle school and high school. But the big thing in 10th grade, the military recruiters came, and, they wanted to, the Vietnam War was going on. So they wanted to get recruits to commit to go into all the different military branches would present. So I listened to the pitch of the Army, and I was a pretty good shot because the landlord had a bunch of rats in this place where we lived. And so he would give me $1 a rat I would kill with a little pellet gun.
This is in the 10th grade.
Yeah. So I figured I can be a shooter. I can be a sniper in the military. So after the presentation, I said, I'll go, to the recruiting station, and I'll sign up to go at high school graduation. They want you to graduate high school, even though I was in 10th grade. So I went to the recruiting station in downtown Pittsburgh, and I actually went to the wrong building. I saw a guy in a military uniform and figured that must be the place, but it wasn't. It was actually a little military intelligence head outpost. And so this colonel kind of asked me to take some tests, and long story short, went back several weeks and he said, look, I think I want to present you with an opportunity to you look at something different than being in just the regular army and being in infantry. And you could be a counterintelligence agent. And I had no idea what that was, 10th grade, 1973. And he said, well, have you ever seen a James Bond movie? And I said, yeah. And he goes, it's kind of like spying. And I said, no, that sounds fun. He goes, I guarantee it's better than being in the infantry. So I entered into an agreement with the military. It's a contract that I would go in at high school graduation. And after basic training, they would take me through the spy school and I would become a counterintelligence agent. So, in the Army, when I graduated, 2 years later, the Vietnam War had just ended. So thankfully that was gone and been by, no war. So I ended up.
How many years you served?
Yeah, 4.
How was it?
It's fantastic. It was one of the best things I ever did in my life. It helped me grow up. Helped me look at being on a team. It helped me learn skills. It helped me learn manhood. It helped me learn integrity and leadership. Fantastic. Discipline. I learned a ton being in the military.
And then how did you get involved with real estate?
Well, after 4 years, my mom was still battling some of her issues. Mm-hmm. And I had to decide to re-enlist or to, I had an appointment to go to West Point, to the military academy. But the challenge there is, for your first couple of years, you can't really, you're really not leaving post much. And so I wasn't going to be able to take care of my mom. So I decided to get out and go to university, use my veterans benefit to go to university, take care of my mom. And so I got out, enrolled in university, and I got a job with the colonel that I served with. He bought a little real estate company.
Okay.
And so he said, get your real estate license. I got my real estate license. And he said, call everybody you know and tell them you can list their house or you can sell them a house. And I did that. And after a week, I exhausted all my contacts. And it was I made a few referrals. Nobody wants to buy a property. At the time I was 21 years old, and I knew nothing. I had my real estate license, but I didn't know anything about real estate. And so after a quarter of not making any money and, it was a disaster, I sat down with the colonel and I said, hey, Colonel, next semester I'm going to work full time. And I got this great, I'm going to go to school full time. And I got this great bartending job at night. So I'll be IDOs of this real estate business. And he yelled and screamed at me that, I'm not using anything that I learned in the military and that I should look at my veterans benefits as a resource. And so he said, you can buy up to a 4-unit apartment building with no money down. And he showed me how to do that. So I bought a little 4-unit apartment building that was vacant. I bought it with no money down. I didn't have any money to put down. It literally was about $253. I put it on a credit card. Those were my costs. So now I own a vacant building. So I got my credit card out and I got some buddies that are handy and we fixed this place up and rented it. And at least very quickly, it was right next to Fort Carson military base. So at least up fast. And I went back to the colonel and I said, Colonel, what should I do now? He goes, you're still broke, right? I said, yes, I am, sir. He said, you need to sell it so you get a grub stake. So in early 1980, I sold it. I owned it for about less than 120 days. And I made $37,500 in 3.5-4 months.
That's it. The rest is history.
In 1980. And which was a lot of money. In fact, I took the check and I went to my business professor at the University of Colorado and I said, look at how much money I just made on that. He couldn't believe it. He was making a little over $18,000 a year as a professor in business school. And he said, that's insane. I can't believe you did. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to keep doing it. So I actually did that 81 more times over the next 2 years.
And that 81 grew into how much?
Well, it grew into a lot. What I decided after acquiring all that property was, and these weren't, beautiful properties. These were mostly, tough neighborhoods and rough properties, nobody down. But what I decided to do was to, at the time, prime rate was 21. And I decided that I'm going to get out of the real estate business and I'm going to get into the note business, the financing business. So if you were in one of the homes that I owned, I would come to you and say, Elliot, why don't you buy this home? And you might say, hey, I can't. My credit's bad. I get this. I get that. I don't have a 10% down payment. I said, Elliot, give me $1,000 down and $500 a month, over the next 5 years, and I would just wrap that mortgage, right, and create my own terms. And then you owe me a balloon payment in 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, right? You can make up the terms because I was financing it. And so I thought I would just do that and end up foreclosing on a lot of these properties. But the interest rates came down, but I created about $3+ million worth of paper at 22%. So I was now 22, 23 years old, and I had $600,000 of income before I got out of bed in the morning. And so it just worked out fantastic.
Now, while you're doing this, where's mom?
She's right there. This all was happening in Colorado Springs, which was my last duty station in the Army. And I brought, she came out there and we lived together for a long time.
Okay, so you're right now taking care of mom. She's seeing the difference.
Yeah.
And then what? After you're taking care of mom, you're learning all this real estate. One of my favorite stories. You make a whole bunch of money and you end up losing it.
Yes.
What happened?
So got married and we started into the shopping center business, the apartment business, and things took off. We made millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars,
a year.
New cars, new house, bump, everything's going. And I had become a Christian. I had prayed to receive Christ, but I didn't really understand abiding and hearing from God, but I was checking the boxes and went to church and we raised our girls in church, but I didn't really have that intimate relationship with Christ that I do today. And so, more, so, and we were good savers, so it wasn't like we were totally out there on the edge, but, I wasn't paying attention to the wisdom of the Lord, our Father, right? Our Heavenly Father. And so, what happened was there was a 1986, President Reagan signed in a new tax law.
Yeah.
And it changed real estate and it created a collapse in real estate. And so
what did he sign?
It was the Tax Reform Act of 1986. And so that changed the way that real estate syndications work and taxation. And it created and at the same time, the S&L crisis hit. So you had two things coming together. Savings and loan were lending money like crazy. They were growing exponentially with virtually no regulation. So they were making a lot of bad loans. All that came together and there was a national crisis of real estate. So real estate values plummeted 70, 80, 90% some areas.
Wow. Overnight, like away?
Overnight.
Or?
Yeah, it was a little more than overnight. It took a year or two to sort of wind down and it took a 7-year hiatus. The whole thing took about 7 years to clear out. But in the middle of that, I had a big shopping center that we had signed a loan on for $106 million, personal guarantee. Now, it was a shopping center and everything, we paid our mortgage. We weren't in default. But the problem was the government took over the S&Ls and they were selling 2 shopping centers across the street. My cost of my center was about $100 a foot. These other centers, they were being sold for $15 a square foot. So by appraisal methodology, I was upside down. So the government then, who took over the bank that I had, they then declared the loan in default. And so it took us 5 years.
How much was you owed $106 million?
$106 million, yeah. So, we started praying about it and, we didn't want to file bankruptcy and there's nothing wrong with bankruptcy. It's the law of the land, but the Lord told Becky and I, no, just try to pay everybody off. So I went to the government who controlled the bank and I said, look, if you work with me, I'll try to pay this off. And miracle after miracle, it took 5 years and we ended up getting everybody paid off and everybody whole. And that ended up working out.
Then after this comes an interesting story because a guy in Wall Street comes, you told me you had a 1-page plan.
Well, it really what happened is right after that, Becky said, what are you going to do for a career? And I said, I'm going to be a Subway franchisee because we owned lots of shopping centers. And at the time, if you owned a Subway, you could make $60,000, $70,000 a year. And I had lots of friends that owned 6, 8, 10, 12 of them. And, they played golf all the time, right? They put in a manager and, they make 700,000 or $1 million a year doing nothing. And I looked at it and said, how refreshing would that be if Elliot came in and he was mad at his $5 footlong? I just give him his money back, right? No lawyers, no tough negotiation, no lawsuits. Just I wanted to simplify my life. So for months, I tried to become a Subway franchisee, which, I had just done over almost $400 million worth of real estate deals. And I couldn't do a little $100,000 Subway. The Lord wouldn't let it happen. And what changed was a buddy of mine called me, and he was trying to build a shopping center in Tucson. And it was his first one, and he had a great site. He had it all leased up, but he didn't know how to get it financed. And he called me, he goes, hey, will you help me get this thing financed? And I said, no, I'm not in the real estate business. I want to be a Subway guy. And he said, you're an idiot. And he hung up on me. And then he called me the next day and he said, come on, man, help me out. And at that moment, the Lord told me how to do it, how to put it all together. And I did it, introduced to him, and I got a...
And you saying the Lord told you, like what exactly happened that moment when he gave you this plan?
The Lord just told me in that nanosecond, just, hey, call this guy and tell him you want him to finance this project, and he will. And I did. And that guy wasn't even in finance, which was weird. Happened to be a general contractor. And I called him and he said, yeah, we'll put up all the money if we get to build it. And so I got the money from my friend. He got it. I got a piece of the deal and it sold, and I, made several $100,000. So I was sort of back in it. But during all that, my wife had said, hey, would you promise me that going forward, you wouldn't guarantee loans? Because I don't want to go through that kind of 5 years again,
How was that stress when you guarantee loans? You own so much debt. Like, what's going on?
And you can't pay. And, we went, all the money we had to, basically pay off bills and pay off loans. So we went from having millions of dollars to having, wondering where Friday's groceries were coming from, right?
Wow.
Where's our mortgage payment? I mean, we had nice cars. We sold them. We went down to one car. It was a 15-year-old 4-door Cadillac, one of those big old gunboats,
Yeah.
So I went from having, the newest Mercedes to a 15-year-old Cadillac, It was humbling. The Lord was doing a work on me, and part of it was he was building my character for the future.
Now, when you say character, what was your character like before?
I think it was a little cavalier, and it was more about me and ego and moving fast and, Italian suits and nice clothes and just, all the stuff of the world. Right. And I think the Lord said, you can go that route or you can focus on me. And so slowly, and this is an important point, at that point then I got a mentor, a Christian mentor. The fellow was about 15 years older than me and really stepped into helping me grow in maturity with my walk with the Lord. And that was a big, big part of it.
Gotcha. Now, you come out, you're doing real estate. How do you end up in Tampa and with DeBartolo Development?
I had a beautiful opportunity to meet Eddie DeBartolo, who's my brother. We have the same father, different mothers, and we met here in Tampa, right down the street at Shula's, and it was just sort of I had known about him my whole life.
You know about him your whole life,
yeah,
right? You meet him for the first time?
Yeah, first time face to face.
How was it? How was the feeling?
It was exciting. I always wanted to have a brother and I wanted to have a big family, and I had a single mom, but so I was very excited. I think he was very excited, and we had a beautiful meeting, a first meeting, and he had his, 2 of his daughters and his wife, and it was a fantastic. And I think we both went into it with no expectations, more of like, okay, I'll meet this fella, and now he's legendary. He won 5 Super Bowls, and largest shopping center owner in the world, and he's a legend and a Hall of Fame for the National Football League, and and plus he's just they're a wonderful family. They're very giving, they're very generous, they're really very philanthropic. And both Eddie and Candy and their daughters and their husbands, they care about people, and they care about the communities they live in, and they're very, very charitable and wonderful. So
how was that first meeting? You walk into the restaurant.
Walk in, and I
You
was
guys sit down.
scared to death. I saw him sitting there, and I was scared to death. Went up to him and introduced myself, and we hugged and just sort of sat there and just talked, and just it was a little awkward because if you think about it, neither one of us had anything to do with it, right? Our father and my mom, had a situation. It was what it was, right?
Now tell me something. Did Eddie know about you all these years?
No, he never knew. I mean, he knew before the meeting because I had reached out to him and contacted, but
Gotcha.
for our whole lives, he didn't.
So he never knew nothing.
No.
First time he knows about it.
Face. So we have this beautiful face-to-face meeting, and then I was going down from Tampa to my Miami office, and he and his wife and girl said, "Hey, could you stay another day?" I mean, I said, "Of course, right? This is historic in my life, So stayed. We had another dinner. They invited a bunch of friends. We had a beautiful evening, and then we just kept meeting and sort of brought my wife and my two daughters. We got to meet, and then we just spent time together. And one thing over the next couple of years led to another, and he loves sports, and obviously he's very good at it with 5 Super Bowl rings. And, I like real estate. So we just thought, hey, maybe this is something that we could do to continue what our father started. And so we've been very, very, very fortunate. We've been blessed. Projects have worked out well, and, we've all done well. And the family's been very, very kind to me, very generous to me. And it's been a huge blessing.
So how is it now, family reunion?
It's fun.
It's normal.
It's pretty darn normal. And I talked to him the day before yesterday, and I get off the phone and I just pinch myself, like, I can't believe, if you think about it, God put together a family that was sort of torn apart through sin, right?
Yeah.
And here, God can reconstruct things and make them new, right?
Wow.
And the whole thing is just, I literally get off the phone, like, I can't believe I just got off the phone with my brother, Eddie DeBartolo, and how generous and kind he is and loving. And it's mind blowing. Only God can do those things, right?
So you start DeBartolo, you're building all these big development, and then you have one of the most serious issues in your life.
Yeah.
Cancer.
Yeah.
What happened? The doctor gives you the news.
Yeah. So, Eddie is very engaged with the Cleveland Clinic. And as soon as we found out I had a problem, he had me rushed into Cleveland Clinic, and, bad news, late stage cancer of the bladder, and it looked really bleak. And, I said, okay, 12 weeks of chemo, and then, a month to sort of rest, and then we're going to take your bladder out. Hope you survive. It wasn't very optimistic.
Not the best news a doctor can give someone.
And so, I pressed into the Father and said, hey, your will be done, right? It's like the Bible story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Where the king is throwing them into the fire, and the king says, make it 7 times hotter. And the boys say to the king, look, you can throw us in the fire, but our God is able to save us from the fire. Okay. But they go on and they say, even if he doesn't, he's still God, he's still sovereign. And so that was sort of my story, right? Going through it. I like, hey, God is able to cure it, but even if he chooses not to, right? He's still God, he's still sovereign. I'm going to heaven, not necessarily. I'd like to hang around a little bit more to see my wife and kids longer, and friends and loved ones, but even if. And so he chose to heal
what's
it.
Going on in your mind, though, Ed? Like, what's going on? Like, when, hey, you have cancer, it's late stage, we're getting in the bladder. I understand even if he's good, because now you're already expecting death, but what's going on in the mind? Like, do you put everything to the side? Hey, I'm not going to work no more. Like, what's going on? What was going on in your head?
Just really what's going on was, the beauty about abiding, and you've been through the teaching of abiding, hearing from God, is the beauty when you're walking with the Father is he promises to give you an abundant life.
Okay.
And that's not stuff, right? That's not materialism. It's an abundance of peace, love, joy, and hope. So I really got to look at that live with a health issue that was pretty catastrophic. And through the middle of that, he gave me peace, love, joy, and hope. And so I was looking at no matter what, even if, right? Even if I'm cured, great, peace, love, joy, and hope. Even if it's not going to work out, peace, love, joy, and hope. And so it was super, super powerful and time in my life, and grew closer to the Lord. And just, it's weird, but I thank him for cancer. Like, wow, you just took me through another level over that year and a half or so. Wow. At a deeper level with him. I probably wouldn't have gotten there on my own.
What was your experience? What did you get out of it? What did you learn the most besides that?
What I learned the most is that, he's in control, he's sovereign. And can I really say with confidence, even if, right? And can I walk through the good and the bad with peace, love, joy, and hope? Because I'm pressing into him in a quiet time where I'm abiding, hearing from him, journaling in the morning, and just spending time hanging out with the Father.
How long you been journaling?
20 years.
20 years. Okay. Then what happens? How when the good news comes? This is the amazing thing. Tell us the good news.
So the good news is,
fire the people.
Literally, the chemo didn't work out. So right when we stopped that, then the surgeons wanted to.
Is that when the even if came? The chemo's not working. Even if.
Working. Yeah, we're like, even if. But then a friend of ours introduced us to an alternative doctor outside of Tampa here. And we went to see him, Becky and I, and we started that. So I went there for 8 months and just started these natural treatments. And ultimately, 8 months later, I literally passed the tumor, the bladder out, and through the, and it was just a miracle, right? It would hurt like heck. Passing it, but it was like a giant stone. But it lasted 5 hours. It was just kept coming out, and I thought I was going to bleed to death,
Really?
But it was, and I'm taking pictures of it, sending to the doctors, and they're like, we don't know what's going on. If you pass out, let us know. Like, and then the holistic doctor finally got back to me. He goes, "Oh, you're passing the tumor. Don't worry about it. This is good news. You're healed." And so that's what happened. God just said, "Hey, I'm going to take that tumor and you're going to pass it through."
Do you get a checkup to see if it's gone?
So then we go back, and the alternative doctor says, "Okay, let's double check." So he sends me to the cancer clinic, and they go inside and they look around, and they're like, "We've never seen anything like this. We've never seen or even heard of somebody just passing a tumor out. We've never heard of it." And I said, "Well, with all things are possible with God," right? We've been praying. We've got an army. You were one of our prayer warriors. We've got an army of people praying, and God just chose to do it this way.
If you was to go back, what would you tell your 20-year-old Ed?
I would say go a little slower, right? Slow down. You and I have had that conversation.
Yeah. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. I jumped right in and I started learning by doing, but as you and I've talked about, there's some great educational classes. Real estate's a math business. So, I'm a master of the math now, but, it took me a few years to get there.
Yeah.
So I tell young people, hey, really make sure if you're getting into real estate, you understand the math. Get that education. There's some great university programs like you and I've talked about with MIT. Get that education so that you're prepared.
And how about in life in general? What would you recommend? Is sometimes people, especially our age, younger, we feel like we're hitting the wall.
Yeah.
Like we can't pass through that wall. And I kind of figure everybody's successful that I know they are like you or other people who are successful. You guys also perseverance was key. So
perseverance, but also, in John 15, the Father says, look, if you abide in me, I'll abide in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And so I look back through my life of many decades now, and I can see the times when I felt like I couldn't get a deal done, I wasn't progressing, are all times that I wasn't abiding. I wasn't walking with the Father. I wasn't hearing from the Father. And so he says that if you spend time with me, you can hear my voice. I'll lead you. John 16:13 says that Jesus says that, hey, I'm leaving you with the Holy Spirit who will lead you into all truth and will show you of things to come. And so, the greatest gift I could give anybody is say, hey, learn how to abide, learn how to hear from God. And you can give them the links on how we do that.
Yeah.
And learn how to do that. And so that you can find your perfect purpose, whether it's real estate, medicine, technology, whatever your passion is, right? He wants you to be equipped in your passion, and he'll show you how to do that, and he'll show you how to succeed in that.
Gotcha. Now, Ed, what do you want to be known for? Your legacy.
Well, let me tell you. So we teach people, why. Why you gotta settle for yourself. Why is Elliot here on earth, right? So for Ed, my why is to glorify my Heavenly Father and to bring heaven on earth. So how I try to do that is in most conversations, I try to introduce the Father, what he's doing in my life and glorify him. And heaven on earth looks like teaching people how to abide, how to hear from him, because it creates such a life change in their personhood that it then becomes a lifestyle for them. It changes their family, changes their parenting, changes their marriage. It begins to change their church, their community. And I think we'll see it. I think there'll be a revival in the nation through it.
Just impacting people.
Changing people's lives.
How about your kids? What do you want them to know you as?
Same thing. Just, hey, Dad lived it out. He was purposeful. He was following after the Father. And that's as good as it gets.
Well, guys, thank you again for this episode and podcast. My guest was at Kobel. Ed, thank you so much again for joining us.
Love you.
Love you so much. God bless you guys.
Inspire and serve.